Welcome into another episode of WBOA Courtside. Excited to have you along the way with us each and every week throughout the basketball season, and very excited to be joined by our guest right now who's got a long history in the game of basketball. Also was in the education field for many years, has been involved with the NBA, the WNBA, college basketball, high school basketball, you name it. He has seen it over on the East Coast of the United States. Al Battista joins us right now with Lance and Justin here this week on the podcast. Al, thank you so much for the time. 48 years officiating, been involved with the NBA, the G League, and the WNBA, and trying to find those next officials, right, to get into the pipeline to hopefully eventually work in the league. Take us back to the beginning. How did you all get started with basketball officiating? Where did it all begin for you?
I was a baseball player at American University, and just to stay in condition during the off season, I joined Board 12, and I was 18, 19 years old. My first interpreter in Board 12 for many years was J. Dallas Shirley. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. And Mr. Shirley, he was just someone who taught you the fundamentals and to be professional at all times and always give 100% whatever game it was. Mr. Shirley had worked the Olympics. He was on the original NBA staff. At that time, it was called the Basketball Association of America. So that's how I got started.
And just went in on a whim, and 48 years later, you're still going strong and still involved with the game. So that's awesome to
Yeah.
hear. Obviously, you're an observer. You're out there looking for those next crop of officials, men or women, to join the
Yeah.
college and the NBA game, WNBA. When you hear the word suspect play, how do you define it as an official? Why is it important to recognize without over officiating?
Officials today, especially, they really have to learn to discern. And it's funny what you see in basketball today at all levels, there's a lot of fool the ref plays. You see it with shooters, you see it with defenders, you see it with rebounders. And if you just start reacting, then you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And a lot of times you'd have to discern and just see what is going on. And it's so important today. We were talking about this yesterday. Officials like say everyone says you have to have a basketball IQ. You ever heard that term, basketball? But you have to have a basketball officiating IQ. And really have to know these suspects play. You really have to know your player personnel when they're in warm-ups or just doing them over and over. You'll spot them. You'll know. You ever heard the term referee the defense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But there's a lot more to it because when you referee the defense, right, you deal with three defenders. One, defenders that take charges. Two, defenders that block shots, and three, defenders that are rim protectors. And you could throw four in there. Some players don't play any defense.
Those are the easy ones to ref.
Yeah. And in today's games, a lot of scorers today won't play defense because it will wear them out for offense the way the game's played today at all levels. You referee defenders differently that take charges because you got to get to them quickly. Shot blockers is you have to watch them because if they go up first to block a shot, they usually foul. Not all time, just a guideline. And then rim protectors, you have to worry that they go straight up and not go A to B. So in all these plays, and they're usually drives to the basket. So most drives to the basket in today's game, it's a dribble drive penetration game at all levels. So you got to get in the habit of refereeing 70% defense and 30% offense on drives to the basket. So when that drive's going, you're watching the defense and you're watching the offense as your corner of your eye. Now, everyone usually does it the other way around because we all worry about the ball. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? They might palm, whatever. You just have to trust your instincts because if you do it the other way, these plays are going to blow up on you and so on. But if you go 70% defense, 30% offense when dribbling, you'll get these plays right. Now, let's talk about that. That's how am I going to really learn how to do this? Go and watch a game on television or in the stands and just watch 100% defense. Just watch the defense. It will make your eyes quicker and you'll really get better. And then go and watch 100% of the defense just in the lane. Okay. And when you're watching the defense, watch their hands because usually you foul with your hands. Wouldn't you agree? Most of the time, you foul with your hands. So those are just some things that I would recommend. Now let's flip it. When I catch the ball, I'm going to go 70% offense and 30% defense. I'm going to start sequencing. So I'm going to go feet, pivot, release a dribble. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. And then I'm going to go 70. Then I'm going to switch my eyes to the defense. Now I'm going 70% defense, 30% offense. And you'll get a lot of these plays really right. And your eyes are going to become really quick.
So if we move from defenders, Al, to screening action, how does early recognition of suspect screening action help prevent future illegal screens or player retaliation later in possessions?
Let's talk about screen. Here are the plays, in my opinion, you got to get early in the game if they're there. Okay, here they are. Hand checking, illegal screens, 3 seconds, traveling and palming. Usually occur on that perimeter. You got to get them early to set the tone. And your screens have to be illegal. They can't be incidental or gray type of screens. What it's a screen is illegal action by a player without causing contact that delays or prevents the opponent from reaching a desired position. Well, if someone can't reach a desired position, there's contact, maybe sticking their leg out or whatever, you got to get those early to set the tone. In today's game, there's so many screens and you see it. You got to stay away with the ones that are 50-50 because I don't think you can stay consistent and you're going to get yourself into trouble. They're like the gray screens. This is interesting, Justin, but there's a sequence involved in this when you referee screens as well. When you have 3-point shots, your sequence should be screen. Okay, we're legal. Line, 3-point line, 2-point line, defender. It should be screen, line, defender. Okay, screen, it's illegal. Boom, whatever you want to call it, team control off it. But you can't go out of order. Also, screening too is when you referee screens, you're usually going to referee them as a trill or a center. You got to learn to lift your eyes. So what I mean is I'm looking at you, but see my eyes, I'm lifting them. Here it comes. Here comes the screen. Because if I don't lift my eyes, it's going to be hard for me to referee screens. Also, too, when I'm coming up the court, I can't overrun the play. I'm going to miss these illegal screens. Now, with that, a lot of these teams run these east to west offenses. You got to really watch out for these screens out on the perimeter, and you just got to make sure they're illegal. And so on, which you don't see much in amateur basketball, but you see in pro basketball. In pro basketball, you see a lot of hammer screens where players are coming near the end line and there's a screen to get them open for the three. You don't see many of those in amateur basketball, just the way the game's played. It's played differently. But you see a lot in the amateur game, you see elevator screens where they close off. If those are illegal, you got to get them early. If you wait and say, oh, I don't know, and then you call one with like a minute to go in the game, I mean, it's like, where did that come from? But if they're there to set the tone, I call these calls tone setters. The calls you got to get early are hand checking, okay, traveling, palming, illegal screens, and any freedom of movement off the ball. And with that, another thing with illegal screens, when you go to trill the center or trill the slot, whatever you call it, I tell most officials, what are they doing? Because most officials that I work with or observe, they just go from trill to center or trill to slot, but you should be doing 3 things. You should be thinking big picture. In other words, I'm refereeing this picture around me. 2, I'm going to lift my eyes. I'm just going to look for cutters and screeners. That's all. I'm just going to referee moving players because usually the stationary players are not going to hurt me.
Al, one more thing on illegal screens. What are you looking for to get involved, right? You talked about like if it's a 50-50 play, you're going to not probably get involved. But what is that one indicator you're saying, okay, I got to get in there and get that right away? What looking for?
Anything that can cause rough play.
Yeah.
Anything you got to get rough play out of the game because if you don't get rough play out of the game, it's just going to just really angst up and then you're going to get hard fouls and you're going to get coaches involved and so on. The other thing too, when you're on this call, start learning your player personnel. And just remember years ago, we wrote that article. We talk about mismatches or matchups. Well, let's take it even further. Know the thing to work on as a referee, know what every player, what they do. Do they pull up, shoot threes? Are they screeners? Are they screen and roll? Are they just come in to rebound? They just come in to play defense? Do they come in to disrupt the game? That's what I'm saying. Basketball officiating IQ. And do you have that? And you can learn that, but you got to work on it. You just got to work on it.
Knowing every player has a role, what is their
You got to know you got to know your personnel, and you can when you're around and you just watch games, you could pick it up real quick.
from that
It's
crowd?
funny. I was talking to Joe Forte the other day, and I said, officials nowadays, because you don't see much post play. I said, when we came up in officiating, there was a lot of post play, and I was watching the game the other day, and I felt sorry for the officials because there was actually a lot of post play in this game, and they were having trouble with it because we don't see it anymore. And he says, what's the first thing you should do in post play? I said, call 3 seconds. He goes, yeah, it gets everyone out of lane. I go, that's right. That's right. Because 3 seconds, they're watching us in the lane. But we really don't see much post play anymore. We just don't. When I look at stats, most points in the paint in today's game are on putbacks, but not many are on post play unless there's a 7-footer in the game,
Good perspective, and certainly where the game's at. Al,
Yeah.
how do you take the balance of rules knowledge with feel for the game when an action looks unsafe or illegal but has yet to cross that threshold?
It's about recognizing your matchups, recognizing your mismatches. Again, plays getting rough, you have to do something. It's about knowing rivalries. Any game you referee, whether it's high school, college, a rec ball, if it's a rivalry, you better be ready to come into that gym to officiate or that arena. It could be a J, whatever. Every game's got a personality. Every game has got a story about it, and you have to be ready for that.
Battista joins us this week on WBOA Courtside doing some research here. Joey Crawford is quoted as saying, "Is the finest classroom instructor." That's pretty high praise from Joey Crawford. He likes your classroom work there, Al.
Well, Joey is way better than I am. So it's funny you mentioned that. Joey always talks about, and he's great at game awareness. Do you really know what's going on in this game? And just game awareness, like, oh, we had something down here if we have something off the other end of the floor and it's identical, are we matching it? Just little things like that. When the shot clock is winding down, get ready for rim misses or rim grazes. Just little things just to be ready. And this is game awareness. Game awareness goes along with substitution awareness. Why is this player coming in? Why is that? And just little things like that. I tell a lot of referees I work with, I said, you have a foul, right? They go, yeah. I said, it's a 15 foul. And they go, yeah. I said, but you went out of bounds. So they go, well, what do you mean? I said, well, 15 foul, it's 2 high school basketball, 2 shots. And they go, but when you go 15 foul, I said, you got to work on your court awareness. But if you go bang, it's like a handshake and you go right away. You with me? Like 2 shots, because I know it's a 15 foul. I go, wow, who's that? I mean, they know what's going on. And little things like that. And that just will help you later on wherever you want to go, your court awareness.
Absolutely. Rebounding is always a big one too, right? When you got a defender jumping aggressively, right, to try to get that rebound, but makes no illegal contact. What helps you differentiate legal versus illegal?
There are 3 things you got to go with rebounding. Well, the first thing is you can't call incidental contact on rebounds. If you do, you could get players into trouble. And it could be just a free throw shooting contest. The first rebound scenario is possession consequence. Okay. In other words, A1 pushes B1, but B gets it, we play on. Okay. But if B loses or B travels, we got foul. Right. So we got to have a patient whistle. 2, A1 gets rebound, but gets hit or gets kneed or whatever, we got to have an immediate whistle on that because it could lead to rough play, and that's cleanup. Third rebound play is the hook and hold. So someone hooks somebody, and if you ever see that, let's say you don't see the hook on hold, someone hooking, look for the player with the straight arm. they're the ones who are being fouled. And the hook and holds, you just got to get out of the game early. Just get them out of the early and set the tone. The ones that are 50-50 that you're not sure on, it's better to pass. Also, with this, watch out for the fool the ref. They'll use a Stronach or whatever. Oh, and they fake like they got pushed and they didn't. And then they fall to the floor. And if you missed that, don't get excited. Just say, oh, I see what you did, but you're not going to get me the second time. I understand what you're doing out here, but you're not going to get me the second time.
How does your positioning and patience on rebounding plays affect your credibility when nothing actually happens, but everyone expects a whistle?
You just think by your body language, your aura, your poise, and so on. Now, here's something we don't talk about, and since we're on rebounding, most referees, we don't really work on this, but officiating, especially when working trill and center or trill and slot, whatever you want to call it, it's like playing shortstop and second base. And most referees probably never think about it, but they don't work on their footwork at all. If you get in neutral stances, you're going to miss a lot of plays because you're going to get surprised. But if you get staggered right in front of left, or you're ready to officiate. In the trill and center, you're going forward, ready to referee. In the lead, in any of these scenarios, same stance, but you're going to lean back. You're going to get on your back foot. Trill center, front foot, lead, back foot. Because the lead is the hardest position to work, because I call it, and a lot call it, the anxiety position, because everyone's coming at you at a fast pace. It's the patient position. It's the start, develop, and finish position. In the lead, you're accepting plays, where trill and center, you're actually attacking plays. On rebounds, on trill and center, you can't get on your heels. If you get on your heels, that's when you're going to get off balance, and your eyes are going to be going like this, and so on.
You're talking about footwork as officials, right? Getting prepared for your game. I was listening to a podcast you did with Crown Refs podcast back, I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
You talked about your
Yeah.
23 drills for officials. Now, you don't need to go through all 23 here, Al, but give us a little peek into what those 23 drills will help officials during the game.
Your footwork, there's one drill you could do. You just go in a court and you do it like, and you imagine the clocks there. You go rebound, secure, right? I'm in a staggered stance, and I turn and run. And then you could put cheers on the other end, because when you go from trill to lead, you're going to find the last defender, or the defender that could hurt you the most, all the time. And you got to do that every single time, and find your clock. So I'm going to go rebound, secure, 5:25. So now I'm going to find my, 22. Oh, but that defender, there's a shot blocker. That's the one that's going to hurt me. And you just do little things like that. You can do it with cones. Another drills is it's a sequencing play that Mark Wunderlich says on drives to the basket. He says you referee defender to defender. So once A1 beats B1, go to B2. So you can go on the court as a lead and put two cones on. Just go B1, B2, and call a foul. B1, B2, whatever you want to do. And then you could throw a third cone in there and go B1, B2, B3, block. You could do so many things, but just little things like that.
Pivot foot situations with you, Al. Let's talk those, such as a player lifting the pivot foot, but not quite yet returning to the floor. How do you train yourself to wait and see rather than anticipate that violation?
This is a great drill. When we have training things in the DC area, we break up officials into three groups. One is the player, one is the defender, and one is the official. So you just want to sequence feed, pivot, release. Okay, good. Do it real slow. Feed, pivot. Now I'm going to try to trick you. Feed, and I'll switch. Oh, you just travel. Okay, call it. And just keep practicing a little feed, pivot, release, feed, pivot. Okay, now I'm going to throw some ones where I'm going to try to trick you. Now, the second piece of this, okay, in all officiating, our dead ball officiating is not good. Officials will call travels at all levels, and they'll turn their back. And you can't turn your back on players. I don't care what level it is, you cannot turn your back on players. So whatever you're doing, You call your travel and find your players. Don't start turning your back, because I'll tell you what happens. You turn your back, something can happen. Or you turn your back and the player didn't see you call a travel. What are they doing? They're going away from me. So the thing to do after you go feed, pivot, release, you call your travel, then find your clock to start creating good clock management skills. If you create good clock management skills, like if an observer or your assigner or supervisor comes in and they go, "Hey, that travel," and you go, "Yeah, the one I called at 5:23," and they go, "Ooh, wow, you can remember that?" That's another thing too we don't talk about. Officials also have to work on their recall. What did you call in the game? What's just your recall on scenarios?
Al, what advice would you give officials who tend to whistle the start of a violation or action rather than waiting for the completion required by rule?
If they would just breathe a little bit. If you get your ear in your face, you're going to start reacting and you're going to get yourself into trouble. If you can get your ear in your stomach and just relax a little bit and breathe, you're going to be okay. But you just got to believe in yourself. You just got to have poise and believe in yourself. And you got to get out there and do games, especially when you're first starting out. Got to get out there and do youth games and men's rec games and JV, and you got to just see all that, because the more you do it, and then it's a craft and it's a get better business, and there's no finish line. And you just got to keep on working at it and just be serious about it. And, at whatever game you're doing, because it means something to the participants.
Al Battista joins us this week on WBOA Courtside, longtime college official, observer for many years for the NBA officials, trying to grow that pipeline over on the East Coast and working with officials across the country to try to get them to that next level. As you're looking at these plays, do you judge a play based on the actions of the player, or do you also kind of consider a player's actions in response to a given play? If you call a play and then a player reacts to it, how do you take that?
Yeah, it's all situation based. And is the reaction competitive, or is the action disrespectful, or is the action every play that you don't foul, that player loses credibility? And it's a way someone reacts to it. I'll give you an example. I was refereeing this game last week, and player drove to the basket. He got fouled, missed it. At the end of the first quarter, I said, "Hey, nice first quarter." And I said, "That play down there, I missed it." And he said, "Sir, if I want to play at the next level, I got to learn how to finish." And I went, wow. I mean, that player, credibility, just talking to him, just like went up to here. He didn't criticize me. He said, I have to finish. Where you don't hear that much from players, because now it's like, hey, the officials are always, so it must be their fault.
Al, talk us through a player who may be trending toward trouble, whether it's repeated physical plays, the demeanor, repeated borderline action, but the player yet has crossed the line into a foul or violation. How do you guard against officiating that player's reputation rather than the actual play?
It's about possessions. Work every possession hard. Work every possession hard, and do what's right for the game. Just do what's right for the game. Just work every possession hard, and don't get so wrapped up in, a lot of those things, and have integrity and be fair, and, and just work hard, and you're going to miss plays. And that's another thing we never talk about, is when you miss plays, do you go on or do you go into a box? Because if you go into a box, you got to find ways later on in your career. You got to grow from that. That's where observers could help and be more like official coaches than saying, blah, 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 you missed that. Instead of saying, "Hey, let's start working on this. And why are you doing this?" Or, "I've noticed that when you go in a box, you might miss 4, 5, 6 plays in a row." It's interesting you say that, because years ago, I was observing a G League game and an official was working the game. And to the last 2 minutes of the game, they did not miss a call. And then within like a minute 45, they missed a call. And guess what happened? They went into a box, because instead of, they were They were always striving for perfection instead of striving for excellence. And you're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I told someone said to me, he goes, so and so was doing a phenomenal job in the game. And the person I was talking to says, I was watching the game, they went into a box. I go, wow, you saw it too? And they go, yeah. So then you start coaching them. Okay, you can't be perfect. You miss it. Very easier said than done on this podcast, but you got to train yourself. I got to move on. I got to move on. And I think when officials can start doing that, that's when they start becoming very matured as an individual. And stuff like that, I don't think you can recognize at camps or things like that. You just gotta go and watch games.
What is the single most important habit that you could teach when it comes to a play that looks like is wrong, something's weird, but actually it's a legal play? Like, how do you play through that as far as an official and not get too excited on blowing your whistle when actually nothing should be stopped? The play should not be stopped.
Yeah, in fact, Joey Crawford was talking about this other day. He has a whole group of plays. He calls it ugly but legal. And Mark Wunderlich always says, can you take the pain? It's legal, but everyone's going to be yelling at you because it doesn't look right. And that's just for maturing. It's a get better business and there's no finish line. And you just learn from it. And when you go, boy, that player didn't do anything wrong. It didn't look good, but they didn't do anything wrong. So I just think it's just a learning process.
What are the common plays that fall in our wonderful category of ugly but legal?
Well, sometimes verticality players, someone goes real hard at the basket and the player is just, there and they throw themselves into the player and then everyone's on the floor. Rebound action plays, or a player goes up and they get their shot block and they go up and they get their shot block and they go up and it's verticality and they go up and you're doing really good. No call correct, no call correct. And everyone starts yelling, how can that not be a foul? Boom, you fall for it. You call the foul and there's nothing. And we've all done that because it's ugly but legal. Mark always says, can you take the pain? Can you take the pain? And it's but it's just a learning thing. And it goes back to knowing your player personnel, and it's going back to trust in yourself. Just trust yourself.
Al Battista, our guest this week on WBOA Courtside. Al, really appreciate the extended time.
No, thank
Opportunities
you.
we get to talk with someone with your experience and your credibility in the industry from college all the way up to the pros.
Yeah, well, it was just great. Thanks for having me on.
Al Battista, our guest this week on WBOA Courtside. If you miss any of our podcasts, you can go check them out on YouTube and also on the Wisconsin Basketball Officials Association. We're an organization focused on education, training, and development of officials in Wisconsin. And views expressed by our hosts and guests do not reflect the opinions of the WBOA. Our website, wisboa.net. We're getting into the heat of the season here. Tournament time just around the corner. Stay healthy. Keep working. Keep getting better. Keep watching film and enjoy the rest of your season. And we'll talk again next week here on WBOA Courtside.